You're watching Talk with Audrey. Welcome back. Many people living with diabetes struggle to afford their insulin. In response to this problem, Lilly has launched a nationwide grassroots campaign called Insulin Affordability, Learn, Act, Share. Wade Neucks is the Director of Patient Affordability Solutions team at Lilly Diabetes, and he's going to tell us all about it. Welcome, Wade.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Audrey. Appreciate the opportunity to get some really important information out to people that may be struggling to afford their insulin.
Yeah, and really help them save some money because there are quite a few people who are struggling to be able to afford their insulin. So tell us about the Insulin Affordability Learn, Act, Share campaign.
Certainly. So the Learn, Act, Share campaign is really a broad awareness campaign to make sure that folks who may need help affording insulin know that Lilly has solutions like the Lilly Insulin Value Program, which is a copay card that if you're commercially insured or uninsured, it brings your monthly out-of-pocket cost down to $35 a month for a Lilly insulin. And so the campaign just really is aiming to make sure that everyone knows that there's a bunch of different solutions that can help lower your out-of-pocket cost.
That's a substantial savings. Who's eligible?
Yep, good question. So you can go to insulinaffordability.com, download the cards, or call the Lilly Diabetes Solution Center, 833-808-1234. In general, you're eligible if you have commercial insurance or no insurance at all. We ask the fewest number of questions legally required to activate your card, and then you're off to the races trying to get your $35 copay.
And what if you have Medicare?
Yeah, Medicare has a different solution, but information for that solution is also available in both places, insulinaffordability.com or the Lilly Diabetes Solution Center. So the Lilly Insulin Value Program is a copay card, right? And there's a really exciting new type of plan, which is really important to talk about right now because open enrollment is occurring as we speak and people are making their selection. The new plan is called the Senior Savings Model. And if you sign up for the right plan, and Lilly is participating with our entire portfolio of insulins, but you sign up for this plan and it caps your monthly cost of insulin at $35. And it doesn't matter if you're in the deductible or the donut hole. If you're on one of these plans and you pick up insulin, it'll be $35 for that month.
It's amazing. I know that there are going to be a lot of people who are going to be thrilled to hear about this. And I know that Lilly is also collaborating with the community to help extend the reach of this information. I'm just one person trying to get it out there. How else are you collaborating with the community?
Yeah, so doing things like this, and thank you so much again for the opportunity to get the information out. But we're also working with advocacy groups across the nation and trade associations and elected officials is another big group. Anyone that has a megaphone or anyone that is someone who people would go to if they need help affording their insulin are people that we want to make sure have learned about the solutions, taken an action if necessary, and share the information that no matter what type of insurance you have, even if it's none at all, especially in 2021, no one should have to pay more than $35 a month for their Lilly insulin.
Oh, and of course, you have to be taking a Lilly insulin in order to qualify as well.
Yes, absolutely. Your doctor has to prescribe you the insulin. Yep.
There you go. All right. $35 a month. It sounds like the impossible dream.
We're really excited about it, really proud of it. So through the Lilly Insulin Value Program, that takes care of commercially insured or uninsured folks. That brings the cost down to $35. And through the Senior Savings Model, with Lilly participating, as well as other manufacturers, that caps the cost if a senior chooses the right plan, that caps the cost at $35 a month. And there's plan finders on insulinaffordability.com, as well as a checklist to help seniors understand the total cost of their health care for the year.
And when does this program start?
Great question, because it's a little confusing. With Part D, we sign up early and then the plan starts January 2021. So you got to make sure to sign up now before the end of it in December. And then the benefit kicks in January 1st, 2021. But the Lilly Insulin Value Program is live now. So if you're one of those folks who's commercially insured or uninsured, you should still go check it out and hopefully we can save you some money.
Absolutely. That website again, please, Wade?
Insulinaffordability.com. And the phone number for the Solution Center is 833-808-1234.
Wonderful. Like I said, it sounds like the impossible dream. I mean, wow, this is such good news for so many people out there. Wade Neucks, the Director of Patient Affordability Solutions team at Lilly Diabetes, has been my guest. Check out that website. If you're taking a Lilly insulin, you can perhaps get that cost down to $35 a month. Wow, amazing. Again, thank you so much for joining me, Wade.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time and thanks for your help getting the message out. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, and I'll be right back. You're watching Talk with Audrey. U.S. Latinos have been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19, which is having a devastating impact on the community's health and economic well-being, from personal finance to small business and home ownership. My guests today are Xochitl Leon, the Senior Vice President of Hispanic Segment Strategy for Wells Fargo and Company, and Erica Mancinas, the Financial Empowerment Program Manager for UnidosUS. And they have information about resources to help you navigate current economic challenges. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, thanks so much for coming on to talk about this because, these financial issues during COVID are real for everyone, but particularly the Hispanic community. Let me start with you, Xochitl. How has the economic downturn affected the Latino community?
Definitely. So according to a national survey that was conducted in June by Abriendo Puertas, we learned that about 30% of Latino families had a member in their family who was now unemployed. We also learned that about 1/3 of Latino small business owners had to shut down their business or experience a decline in revenue. And we also learned that about 40% of Latino families at that time were struggling to pay rent or their mortgage. The one silver lining here that's consistent with the Latino community is that they continue to outshine in their level of optimism and resiliency, and looking forward, being able to recover quickly.
And Erica, you're on the ground, and I'm sure that you hear a lot about the issues around home ownership and just how vulnerable people are during this COVID economy. What can be done to help protect affordable housing and lending?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's important to note that even before the COVID outbreak here in the United States, home ownership was already unaffordable for many Latinos across the country. So according to a poll done by UnidosUS in February of this year, 2/3 of Latino respondents reported spending more than 40% of their monthly income on housing costs. And we see that COVID has only made this worse. To another poll that was done in August of this year, almost 70% of respondents reported either having lost their job or having their hours severely cut as a result of the pandemic. And so what we see is, now more than ever, there really is a pinch on families and individuals across the country, not only in terms of home ownership and being able to pay their mortgages, but also renters and landlords who, because of lost income, aren't able to make ends meet. UnidosUS is addressing this on several fronts. I would say the first is we're building coalitions and partnerships with organizations and stakeholders across the country in order to provide timely information and resources on where families and individuals can have access to funding. So we know that there are funds available at a city, at a state, sometimes also at a federal level. For many communities across the country, it's just a matter of making sure folks know what's available in their cities and also helping them become eligible and have access to these resources.
So is there a clearinghouse of information available for those financial resources for the Latino community?
Yeah, absolutely. I would, direct folks to our website, unidosus.org, where they can have access to what programs and what organizations are doing this work on the ground. UnidosUS has a network of almost 300 community-based affiliates across the country. And oftentimes these organizations engage in work around financial coaching or housing counseling that offers one-on-one personalized support in bilingual and culturally sensitive format for families and individuals. I'd also recommend the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, cfpb.gov, which is a government agency that offers information and resources as well as protection for consumers.
So Erica mentioned that up to 40% of someone's income could be going towards housing. That's a lot of money, especially when you consider that people might have lost their jobs, or if they're self-employed, lost their business. I mean, how can people manage their financial health during these really tough times?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We want to make sure that the community knows that there's a lot of accommodations that are being given right now for people who are financially struggling through the various banking institutions. So if you have a home mortgage, we recommend, and you're having, concerns about making ends meet or falling behind, please, this is the time to really give your representative a call, send an email, go to the bank, and speak with your representatives, because there are a multiple number of programs there to serve financially distressed families, many of us. Besides these programs that have been placed right now in light of COVID, we're really focusing on the fundamentals about money management, right? Making sure that you're clear, you have, clear line of sight and understanding on what's coming in and what's coming out. And there's a lot of tools, either through your banks or through UnidosUS, there's resources at large that allow you to make sure you understand what's coming in and what's going out, and it aligns with your needs and your expectations. One thing that I use is alerts, because that gives me a real time of all my expenses. Whenever a credit card goes through from my mom or my husband, we're all on the same plan. I know what's being spent, and we can have a discussion to make sure it aligns with the goals and agreements for the month, or raise a flag with the bank if it looks like suspicious activity. So both reaching out to your institutions or your retailers, whomever you have a relationship with that you're concerned about, and asking for help, and also spending the time to really look at your inflows and outflows and make sure that they align with your expectations.
When it comes to home ownership, and you mentioned earlier that if you have a mortgage, you should call the bank. What sorts of resources can Wells Fargo, for instance, provide to help their consumers and small business owners?
There are a number of programs to help you out with your payment structure. As an example, these are all case by case. So I can't generalize it. It really is on the individual situation of the family. But there are multiple programs to either help you with your payments, delay your payments, or address fees. So there's a multiple of options, but it's really a case by case. There's not a blanket approach.
So the first step is that you have to pick up that phone, make an appointment, go into the bank and have that conversation. But sometimes, as you know, pride gets in the way. We're all accustomed to taking care of ourselves, right? And when you're trying to pay the mortgage, put food on the table, take care of the kids, that's a lot. Erica, the website that you mentioned for UnidosUS, what other information can we find there?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, you hit the nail right on the head when you mentioned the most difficult thing is taking that first step. And as I mentioned before, housing counselors and financial coaches are there precisely to help clients kind of take that first step. And the great thing about these services is that, all of the housing counselors that are part of our affiliate network here at UnidosUS are also HUD certified. So they understand very deeply what is a process, what are the options that homeowners have depending on what situation they're in, what are some programs or some options that they may have, and getting into kind of the nitty gritty of what might be available for me, what services can I trust. I think housing counseling and financial coaching really comes in to fill this gap and this knowledge that consumers may or may not have about what does the process look like, if they might be intimidated by it, if they may not understand all of the language or all of the jargon. And so really I would emphasize that especially now these programs are more crucial and vital than ever. Many of these programs through COVID-19 and how we've been able to pivot are offered telephonically or virtually. So families and individuals can access these resources from the safety of their homes without fear of having to go into an office, without fear of having to maybe catch the virus outside of their homes.
And Xochitl, where can people go for more information?
Yeah, and I just want to touch on the pride piece of it. Families have children, have family members that care for them, and know that this is not an individual situation, it's a collective situation. And sometimes it's great to lean in to others to just, go through these difficult times. I know that I've stepped in for my parents when it comes to addressing bills and doing the groceries to keep them safe, to give them peace of mind. So, just wanted to plug that, it's a collective situation, and there are loved ones who care for us who maybe we need to lean in if we're having trouble asking for help. Now, pivoting back to your point on the question on, what resources there are for consumers are large. We have this great non-brand and non-commercial platform that's called Hands-On Banking, and you can find it on handsonbanking.org. It's available for free in Spanish and English. In Spanish is elfuturoentusmanos.org, and it has modules for any financial questions from, the 10-year-old, my son, all the way to the 70-year-old, relative, as well as deep dives in terms of how to rebuild your credit, how to save for a first home. It's a rich library of financial education. And then for small business owners, we just launched a resource called the Small Business Resource Center. And that one's really focused on the mindset and the unique needs of small business owners impacted right now by COVID, and how they can adapt and reimagine their business in light of, heightened digitization and everything else that they're facing.
All right. Sounds like some tremendous resources. Appreciate you both for joining me. My guests have been Xochitl Leon, the Senior Vice President of Hispanic Segment Strategy for Wells Fargo and Company, and Erica Mancinas, Financial Empowerment Program Manager for UnidosUS. There are resources out there, and they've just given you a roadmap to get started. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much, Audrey.
Thank you.
And I'll be right back after this.
Hi there, I'm Audrey Adams. Do you want to live a better, healthier, and more financially secure life? If so, then Talk with Audrey is for you. I talk to experts from a variety of fields. We'll talk about your financial life. We also delve into health and aging, and of course, business. You can get the benefit of all these interviews and so much more. Just watch Talk with Audrey right here. And if you need more information, either about me or the show, visit my website, talkwithaudrey.com. Tell your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, everyone you know, to join you in this pursuit of a better life. Watch Talk with Audrey.
This is Talk with Audrey. Welcome back. Each year, more than 32,000 people in the United States are diagnosed with multiple myeloma. It's a cancer of the plasma cells. Relapsed refractory multiple myeloma is a complex one because as patients relapse, they can become resistant to therapies. Well, joining me today is Dr. Usmani with the Levine Cancer Institute and Robert Pugh, who's living with this difficult to treat disease. Welcome, Dr. Usmani and Mr. Pugh.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you both for joining me. Let me start with you, Dr. Usmani. Exactly what is multiple myeloma?
Multiple myeloma is the second most common blood cancer that occurs in the United States, and it's caused by an abnormal white cell population called plasma cells that starts to overgrow and populate the bone marrow, and that leads to reduction in the regular functioning of the white cells, and eventually, other symptoms and signs of the disease.
And what are some of the signs and symptoms, and who's at risk?
The signs and symptoms can vary from one patient to the other, but generally unexplained recurrent infections, persistent weakness, bone pain or bone fractures can occur as the most common reasons. This disease tends to happen later in life with a median age of 69 years. But there are certain groups like African American folks who are at a higher risk of developing myeloma, twice as more common than other groups, and men more common than women.
Well, why are African Americans at greater risk for multiple myeloma?
African American population tends to have twice as more common incidence of myeloma, but we do not have a lot of research studies that tell us exactly the reason why, and this is an active area of research. It tends to happen at a younger age in African American folks as well.
Mr. Pugh, how long ago were you diagnosed, and what has your experience been?
I was diagnosed in January 2014. I was preparing for a race for 15K, and I went in for a normal physical in preparation for that race, and that's when I found out. The doctor saw that my white blood cells were going down, and so with the test, I found out I had multiple myeloma and had not had any indication that it was there, no symptoms.
And of course, your life has been impacted. Can you tell us just how it's impacted you?
Yes. The first thing you want to say is that it takes over, but it doesn't. It has to be a partnership because, and I mean that in this way, there's so many changes that occur in your life because of multiple myeloma. The changes will deal with everything from your nutrition to your rest to your exercise. The disease impacts each individual differently. So what becomes paramount is your communication and your relationship with your medical team, your doctor and your nurses and all that support base, because there are changes that are going on constantly with that disease. And as you communicate, they can tell you what's temporary. Don't overreact. That's going to go. And what needs more water in your system or just small things like that. So you have to take full responsibility now for your health. I know we think we do, but this is an active responsibility, which would include all your testing. And it's very important you stay in good communication with your medical team.
And Dr. Usmani, staying in good communication with that medical team is, I'm sure, very important. What's the current treatment? And I understand also that people can become resistant to therapy and therefore need something else.
Myeloma is a disease that's considered incurable, but it can be controlled very effectively with newer treatments. So when patients go into a remission after initial treatment, many will have the myeloma come back at some point, and when it does, we have other treatments and therapies that can control the disease. But eventually, patients do become resistant to those drugs, and that's when the disease is called relapsed refractory myeloma. And the key here is patients need to be engaged with the healthcare team so that they can find the best available option for them, because therapy is so individualized.
And so, if a therapy isn't working, what steps should patients take if they feel that they might be relapsing?
Again, being educated about the disease and listening to the various treatment options that are available to them, and then coming up with a conjoint decision to move forward with a specific treatment would be the best way to do this. And Robert has highlighted this in his answer as well.
And Robert, what advice do you have for patients who are really trying to overcome some of the challenges that they're having?
Be patient. And understanding is the key to overcoming some of the temporary challenges that you face. And so if you're having one challenge, you talk with your team and you'll find out that that's something that many other people dealt with, and here's what they did. And so you get the advantage of how other people have dealt with one aspect. And so I would say be patient. Be open and communicate, and try to communicate with the medical staff. There's so much stuff outside that you don't have time for that. This is serious, and you need to get involved and take care of yourself.
That's right. You have to become your own advocate.
You betcha.
And that's why whenever I have an opportunity to speak with people about their health issues with a doctor as well, I'm always struck by the fact that, the more you know, the better off you are. So I thank you, and I want to thank you, Robert, for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
And Dr. Usmani, where can we go for some more info?
If viewers would like to go find out more details about myeloma and treatment options, and they can go to the website mymyelomaoptions.com for details.
Again, everyone, be sure to check with your healthcare provider. Dr. Usmani and Robert Pugh, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And that's it for this week's show. I'm Audrey Adams. Join me here next week for more insightful, intelligent, and inspiring conversations and information on Talk with Audrey. I'll see you next week.